My name is Jay Sutter. I am the publisher of the Shawnee Mission Post. We are very excited to be here tonight in conjunction with the Northeast Johnson County Chamber of Commerce to bring you all a forum with the candidates running for office here in Merriam. We have our incumbent mayor, Mr. Sissom, and several candidates for the city council. We are always excited to be able to offer people opportunities to hear from the people who are going to be making decisions about the future of the city where they live. And with that, I will introduce our moderator for tonight, Mr. Brian Brown, the legislative chair of the Northeast Johnson County Chamber. Mr. Brown.
Get up here and get my 10,000 steps in. Thank you all so much for being here. As mentioned, my name is Brian Brown. I am the legislative chair of the Northeast Johnson County Chamber, and we are very blessed to have such a wonderful community resource like the Shawnee Mission Post helping us to host this event for all the residents and individuals with regards to the future of the city of Merriam. Some housekeeping items I'll go ahead and get started with before we move forward. All candidates running for mayoral office or city council were invited to participate in tonight's debate. So as you see, we have almost a full slate of the 9 individuals running. We have 7 present. There'll be no questions taken from the audience from the floor. However, the candidates have been asked to stay afterwards and answer any relative questions you may have of them before casting your vote here over the next few weeks. Our official timekeeper will be Deb Settle of the Northeast Johnson County Chamber of Commerce. And this forum is being videotaped, and once completed will be uploaded to the Shawnee Mission Post website as well as the votejoco.com website, which is a comprehensive website which will have all of these events from all the different municipalities, all over Johnson County. At this time, I would like to introduce the individuals you came here to see. Running for mayor at this time, our incumbent, Mr. Ken Sissom. In Ward 1, we have incumbent Scott Diebold. In Ward 1, we also have Mr. Dennis Miles. In Ward 2, we have Ms. Patty Newkirk. Ward 3, we have incumbent Christine Evans-Hands. In Ward 4, we have incumbent Ms. Cheryl Moore, as well as also in Ward 4, Mr. David Neal. At this time, before we get started, our candidates will be limited to 1.5 minutes for question responses, and we'll begin opening with 2.5 minutes for their opening statements. At this time, we will now hear the opening statement from Mr. Ken Sissom.
I just want to make sure everybody can hear. My name is Ken Sissom. I've been the mayor here for the last 8+ years. I guess you could say Merriam is quite a passion of mine. I started my affiliation with Merriam in 1979, and I've been a citizen of Merriam since 1985. I ran for mayor after I retired as police chief here at Merriam because I believed at that time there were some things that needed to be fixed. We had a pretty serious split in our council. There were a lot of things that weren't being done by the city that could have been done had we had more a better relationship by all members of the council. We also had some city staff issues, and of course I was pretty aware of those issues because I was a staff member. So when I ran for mayor, I had the luxury of having attended every council meeting since 1990, and even since 1992. And I've attended all the meetings up to this point, with the exception of about 10. So I had a good handle on what the city was up to and what it needed done. I was elected, and I was re-elected unopposed. We made some tremendous strides with the city of Merriam. And I've been very happy with my experience as mayor. I didn't know whether the third term was going to be in my cards, but when we got involved in the community center project, I realized because I have such regard for the successful completion of that program, that I wanted to see it through. So that's why I decided to run a third term as your mayor. Thank you very much all for being here. Thanks to the chamber and to the Post for being here as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sissom. At this time, we will hear the opening remarks from Mr. Scott Diebold.
Good evening, guys. I'm Scott Diebold. I'm running for the council position, Ward 1. First of all, I'd like to thank the Chamber and Shawnee Mission Post for hosting this, because it's a great opportunity for all of us, and the audience included. My wife, Cheryl, and I have been in Merriam for 25 plus years. We raised our 3 kids here, and we believe there's not a better city, right, to live in or to raise your kids in, and we believe that wholeheartedly. I've been on the council for 2.5 years. Started back in March of 2015 when Chad Rowe gave up his position. I finished his last 2 years of his term, went through an interview process, was voted on by the council at the council at that time. So this is my first election, and it's been an experience. A lot of good, enjoying the process, because I am learning a lot about the process, a lot about my neighbors, all good things. I think in the past 2.5 years, I have learned a lot, because I didn't know a lot about city government, and I've learned a lot there. Still got a lot to learn, willing to do so and wanting to do so, to be a better councilman. And I'd be honored to be the representative for Ward 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Diebold. At this time, we'll hear the opening remarks from Mr. Dennis Miles.
Thank you very much for allowing me to come here. I have lived in Merriam. We bought our property in '99. We looked all over the place for a good community to raise our family in. We love Merriam. We have family members who lived here all of our lives. The concept of Merriam and the people that live in Merriam, we really enjoy. When I moved into our new home, the first thing we had to do was paint it. The neighbors would come over and ask us how things were going. I had to tell them, if they keep on coming over, I'm going to put them paint. But it wasn't until 2.5 years ago that when I came home from work, there was a door hanger on my door. And I looked at the door hanger and I said, "What's this?" And the city decided that they wanted to screen the trash cans. And my property, the trash cans were behind the property line on the side of the property. You couldn't see them from the road. So I went around and talking to the neighbors and asked them about it. And some of them said, "Well, you know, it's actually the trash cans in the front of the property that they're complaining about." I said, "Well, this says it's supposed to be screened on both sides." We went up to the city council meeting, had 25 of us, had 80 signatures on the petition. The first time that we went and voiced our opinions. The second time we went up, the mayor put it up for a vote. Scott, being a good guy, and I like Scott, he voted against us, with 25 of his residents sitting in the audience. And I couldn't understand that. I mean, he's a city councilman, he should represent the people and listen to the people. I, if elected, will listen to the people. Like I say, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miles. We will now hear the opening statement from Ms. Patty Newkirk.
Good evening. My name is Patty Newkirk, and I would again like to thank the Chamber and the Shawnee Post for having us here tonight. There have been a lot of changes this year since the election, and I haven't been happy with all the changes happening in our country, and so the year 2017, I made a decision that I was going to become involved and see what I could do in my own small way to kind of do what I could about those changes. And so I've become very active this year. And one of the things I wanted to do was just become involved. And so I decided to become involved by running for office. And I wanted to give back. And I think one of the great ways that you can give back is to become involved in your community and run for office and do what you can to give back in that way. And I thought representing my ward would be a way to give back. Some of my qualifications are, I've been a high school teacher for 15 years. I taught English, speech, debate, and forensics, so my background is communication. I also have a master's degree in communication studies and a master's degree in educational technology. I got a degree in instructional design and technology recently, and what I'm doing now is I train adults in learning and development, and I also teach adults. I'm a trainer. So I think my background in education and curriculum design and so forth, to let you know that I will be a very conscientious person on the council, research and carefully scrutinize issues that are brought before the council, make very deliberate and informed decisions. And as a communicator, I want to represent my ward, go forth and find their opinions, as you were saying, represent the opinions of the people in my ward, communicate their needs, listen to their needs, and be a good representative for them. So I think those are the qualifications that I would want people to know about me, that I am reliable, that I am ethical, that I'm honest and a very hard worker, and I would want to do the best for my community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kirk. Can everyone hear okay? Everyone's good? Can you hear me? Okay, there. That's what I want to make sure. I will speak a little louder. My voice tends to be overwhelming at sometimes. So, thank you very much, Mr. Kirk. At this time, we'll now hear the opening statements from Ms. Christine Evans-Hands.
And I've chosen to go ahead and talk to you just because there may be some people that don't know me. I have the luxury of running unopposed this year. I don't really know how to act in that situation. I've lived in Merriam for 37 years, and I've been on council for Ward 3 since 2005, and I've been the council president the last 2.5 years. As that implies, I really enjoy being on council. And besides being involved in just Merriam, I try to reach out and have other opportunities in the larger community. So I often attend events at the chamber and at various leagues for city involvement and at Mid-America Regional Council. I find that those opportunities of getting outside of the boundaries of Merriam give me a chance to meet with experts as well as to meet with other engaged people in other communities, and I really value being able to do that. I have a variety of interests, so I've dabbled in a lot of things, including, but not exclusively, sustainability, solid waste management, lots of exciting things there. Communities for all ages, aging housing stock and infrastructure, transportation, and public art. Over the years, I've been pleased to see projects throughout my tenure go from being just a kernel of an idea through the whole discussion process and then all of the required policies, procedures, publications, and all of that until ultimately completion. Some projects are dollar generators, but some are not. Some are quality of life, and I think both of those things are very important. Consider, for instance, IKEA, our car dealerships, playground equipment, park shelters, rebuilt streets, new sidewalks, public art installations, current right-sizing of the police department building, and food truck gatherings. I want to continue to be involved because we're looking at some really exciting projects coming up. The new community center, as well as the redevelopment of the Kmart property. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Evans-Hands. This time, we'll now hear the opening statement from Ms. Cheryl Moore.
Hello. Well, I am the current Ward 4 City Council representative. My experience and credentials include, I've been a 30-year resident of Merriam and Ward 4. We raised our family here. I've served for 7 years on the Planning Commission, City of Merriam, and then I have a master's degree in urban planning from the University of Kansas. Merriam has just really never been better, and my objective is just to keep the positive momentum going. So it's like, well, how do we do that? Well, first of all, it's continued fiscal responsibility. We've got strong sales tax revenue, low debt, healthy fund balances. The second thing we do is that we continue to make certain that the city departments have the tools that they need to work smart and be effective. So an example is the police department is able to use data-driven or make data-driven decisions for safety, for crime and traffic safety. Another example is that our Public Works Department will soon be using radar technology to evaluate road condition, not just surface, but below the surface, so that we can make smart decisions and plan accordingly. And the third thing that we need to do, that we will do, is to continue to enhance city services. So a recent example is we have the limb pickup. It's an annual service now. The next is March of 2018. And that's not in response to storm damage. That's just a new service that the city offers. Another example is grants for home improvement, exterior home improvement, and grants for block parties to build community. Like I said, Merriam has never been better. I'm the best candidate to continue, and so I just want to keep the positive momentum going. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moore. We'll now finally hear the opening remarks from Mr. David Neal.
Hello, everybody. I'm David Neal, and I'm also running for City Council Board of 4. And much of what Cheryl just said, I agree with in terms of the shape that Merriam is in and the need
Mr. Neal,
to.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. If you can you speak?
Yeah, I've been having some allergies today, so
Okay.
I apologize. I was going to say that I agree with most of what Cheryl just said in terms of where the city of Merriam is right now. And I agree that it's the next period moving forward that has driven me to want to run for office. I've never run for office before, but my background, I have an engineering and construction background. I hold a Class A general contractor's license here in Johnson County. And I also have been a small business owner for 27 years, both in construction and in software development, which is an odd combination. I have an engineering undergraduate degree, graduate school, computer science, software engineering, and I also have a more recent degree in web technology, web development, and digital technologies. About 2 years ago, I decided as I wind down my career, I plan to retire in Merriam. And when I moved here 13 years ago, Merriam was the best kept secret in Johnson County. I lived in the Missouri side, never considered Merriam a serious community, honestly. But when I got here, I just fell in love with the place. I plan to stay here. As a matter of fact, when I moved in, I have almost an acre, and I put in 18 fruit trees in the backyard. And so I don't want to move and lose that now. But I'm here primarily because I think someone with my background needs to be on the city council, because I don't think there are times where some questions that I think should be asked aren't asked when we're looking at some projects. And I believe that I have the expertise and the background that will add to the expertise that's already on the council in other areas. So that's the reason I'm running. I have put an awful lot of information out on my website, nealformerriam.com, Nealfor Merriam.com, probably more than I should. But, I'm not a politician, but I would encourage everybody to go take a look. There's a variety of topics there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neal. The question is this, going to Ward 1, being Mr. Miles. As Ms. Evans alluded to, we have a new community center coming online. We're very blessed by the city of Merriam to be able to allow us to have this event here. With the Merriam voters recently approving a new measure to allow $30 million for a new community and aquatic center, in your mind, how should the city plan for future utilization of the Irene B. French Community Center?
Well, for the next 3 years, while the new one's being built, we're going to still use this one for a community center. The building is 106 years old with 20 sub pumps in the basement, trying to keep the water out. By my understanding, they can't keep the water out. So that was the whole point of the new community center. This is a floodplain here. Why put money into this building? I mean, by my understanding, they're thinking about making it an amphitheater, so I wouldn't put another dime in this building, but they're gonna have to keep it open for the next 3 years while they're building the new one. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you, sir. Question now goes to Mr. Heath.
Obviously, the new community center will be benefit for our city. This site, we know, has lots of challenges. It raises a lot of questions. You know, how are we going to preserve the history of this place? Because we know there's a lot of history here. Are we going to keep throwing money into it? Obviously, we got to keep it open. I think, you know, again, we have to do that, obviously, until the new one's ready to go. When we are in, I think we need, at the end of the day, we need to engage the public, because we know that there are residents that maybe attended that school. They need to have some input as to how that history is saved. Now, are we going to tear it down? I mean, I don't know. Those are all questions that are going to get answered later, after we've covered a lot of information, after we've answered all of these questions and engaged the public. We've engaged in engineering firms, our construction trades businesses that are going to give us very detailed, experienced answers to these questions that are going to guide us into whether or not we save part of the building, we tear it down and put an amphitheater, you know, whatever that might be. So I think right now we've got to gather as much information as we can in the next 3 years, okay, and begin that process so that when the time does come, we can make, okay, that decision that's going to spend our tax dollars the best.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Heath, question?
The same question?
Yes, ma'am.
Two answers before have touched on some really important points, I believe. There is a real tie for some people to the history of this building, but I think it has a lot of promise. I'm excited about some possibilities for this site for the future. So some ideas. One point you brought up, I think the community should be involved. Something I would like to see is perhaps what's the word? You know, a force of people brought together, force of input of ideas. And once they come together with maybe 2 or 3, you know, bring it down to like their top 3 ideas. And an amphitheater, I think, is an idea that's being put forth that I think would be great. You know, some performing arts, bring together the farmers market as part of that. And I think that's one of the top ideas that we're considering. But again, the community needs to be a part of that. But maybe their top 1 or 2 ideas, and I'm hoping that's one of them there. And I would like to see that. So putting that idea forward, I'd like to see the farmers market be brought in as part of that. And park space developed. We're actually short, I don't know if a lot of people know that, we're actually short a little bit of park space for the community that we have here. So I'd like to see some park space developed, bring the farmers market in on that, maybe see the Turkey Creek Festival brought in as part of that. And but as far as the preservation of the history here, let's talk about that a little bit. I would like to see, especially the oldest part of this building, perhaps that part saved here, maybe as a historic part of the building. Oh, sorry, gosh, I wasn't looking, I was so excited, I'm so excited, I'm so sorry.
Obviously, it sounds like she's very passionate.
I am,
about
I
utilization.
apologize, I was looking around, I'm so sorry.
Thank you very much. Ms. Evans-Haynes, the question is to you now.
I'm not sure that I have a lot to add to this. I do believe we will definitely consider the historical value of the cornerstone of the building, if not the building itself. I also think that a public task force definitely will be a requirement. It's already been discussed at council, so I'm sure that the existing council is already on board with that. I really don't have more to add to that.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
In Ward 4, we'll now begin with the question first, starting with Mr. David Neal.
Excuse me. Well, actually, this is this question gets to the heart of one of the reasons I'm running for city council. I believe that you need somebody with my background to take a look at these kind of things. I spent several hours back in this summer going through the building very carefully. I professionally have done this kind of thing for a long time. And I believe that the problems that the building has are not nearly as bad as people have said in certain cases. I also believe the new community center was a good idea because this building is basically an educational facility. It's not configured for a community center. Having said that, I believe that this building can be repurposed, and particularly the historic nature of this building is important to me. I just feel that before we consider tearing it down and putting in an amphitheater, I think we need to look at all of our options. One of the things, also coming from a background of digital business, there are many companies that need part-time space. They have a lot of workers that work at home. I think this building possibly could be looked at as a co-worker space, possibly even with a maker space. These are things that are becoming prevalent in cities like this, and we don't have anything like this in this area. So I look at that as an option before, and other options as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neal. Finally to you, Ms. Moore.
So the question is, what do we do? And I say we make a good decision. We need public input. We need to process, determine what our options are, what all of our options are, and right now, we really don't know. We haven't had any public input. We don't know what our options are. We need to make a good decision, and we will. This is an icon for the community, larger than the city limits, and we just need to do the right thing. So we'll just, just like everything else, we'll start in methodically and go through, narrow out our options, make a good decision, and that's what we'll do.
Very good. Thank you very much, ma'am. First question, please.
All right, on the community center. Being last sometimes has its disadvantages. A lot of things have been said here. It's neat to see that we have differing views on what should be done, but I think we all agree that there are going to be portions of this building that probably are not going to be here 3 years from now. We're probably sitting in one portion of it right now. This is the newest portion, by the way. It was built in the 1950s. The biggest problems that we have in this entire building lie beneath our feet. That's one of the problems. The other problems is most of the infrastructure with regard to heating and air conditioning and plumbing also lie beneath our feet. So when we remove this building, we remove all those options, which means if we're going to keep the most historic part, we're talking about spending an awful lot of money to do that. Now bear that in mind that it's sitting in a floodplain. We moved the workout facility out of it because the mold count was borderline unhealthy. So there's a lot of problems with this building. We've got an elevator, for example, that may need several thousands of dollars just to keep it in operation. So in the next 3 years, are we going to spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to keep an elevator running so we can possibly tear the building down? These are the hard questions that the city has. What I see happening truly does depend upon what the citizens want and what's feasible. And the council has to decide, in the end, they have to decide what's best for the city based on how much are we willing to pay and what's the best use of money. And I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sisson. Okay, we're finished with question number one now. I'm sure. Question is this. Ms. Newkirk, you had alluded to creative utilization of this space down here. It just so happens this is going to be somewhat of what your question is going to allude to. Question for all. What steps should the city of Merriam be taking to stimulate economic development, facilitating more individuals to utilize and or visit Merriam's historic downtown area?
Wow. I feel like this is what I'm passionate about. This is actually what I am excited about. This would be one of the things I am hoping for, would be the utilization of this very area, the amphitheater, and partnering with the farmers market, and bringing maybe the Turkey Creek Festival back here. One of the issues that I have as I've been going around is the preservation of the old with creating new spaces. That's really one of the visions that I would have for this area, and the park space, bringing people back, children, playground space, wanting to come down here. That's what I would really like to see, people wanting to come down here and use this space, and wanting performance area with the amphitheater. groups may be coming, performances, folks wanting to come down and visit this area more. And that was really one of the things I would really like to see. That's kind of the cornerstone of what I would like to see happen in this area and bringing more people down here.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Ms. Evans, the question is to you.
Could you just restate it so I can be very focused on what you've asked?
For you, I would love to.
Thank you.
Just for you.
What steps should the city of Merriam be taking to stimulate economic development and facilitating more individuals to utilize and/or visit Merriam's historic downtown area?
So the economic development part of downtown is really going to be largely dependent on what happens with the Corps of Engineers and our flood control project. As far as just getting people to visit with what we have now, I think the activities that the Parks and Recreation group has provided for us at the marketplace have really drawn people here. We've also added our art projects, and we hope that that ends up being something that also will draw people to downtown. Opportunities to see and hear and experience different things. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We will now hear the response from Ms. Moore.
Steps to stimulate economic development and bring more people into historic downtown. You know, both of those are tied to the floodplain. You know, I mean, they just really are. Any economic development, those improvements are tied to floodplain improvements, and then more people coming to shop, to eat, to do all those things are going to have those different options, and that too is tied to floodplain issue. It's just, it's in the floodplain, and it's limited regarding what economic options are available right now for people to come in and purchase and put in businesses, and for the existing businesses to make improvements, because it's in the floodplain. So until that issue is addressed, we probably can't, make sweeping improvements, but we do what we can, which is Parks and Rec, bringing people in, the trails, the farmers market, the community center, the events that we have here, the art project, or the art projects, but also the art displays that we have upstairs. We try to bring people in for that, and part of that's just enhancing community life. But that's, without fixing the floodplain, we can't make massive changes.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful response, ma'am. Mr. Neal will now hear your response to the question.
Okay, again, like the first question, I've actually written extensively about this issue and the first question on my website, but to try to summarize my thoughts. I agree that the floodplain is a problem. Business owners can't expand their business or reconfigure it while on the floodplain until the flood control project is done. However, I'm also a believer in going out and going up against impossible odds sometimes. I think the city needs to do some more lobbying to try to, both at the state level and at the federal level, to hopefully get the ball off dead center and get some money from the Corps of Engineers coming back this way. Sometimes a squeaky wheel works, and so until we do that, we're really limited in what we can do. But that's another reason why I think it's important that we attempt to preserve the historic facility that we have here, because it's essentially an anchor for what would be a downtown Merriam. And I think having a historic downtown is really part of our identity as a community. I mean, I love going in Old Shawnee or Old Lenexa and Old Overland Park. I think that establishes who these communities are. And we have a unique challenge, and if I'm on the city council, I will work very hard to try to push things along so that we do get the flood control project underway, and then we can do the other things.
Thank you very much, Mr. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay. Mayor System, the question.
There's a lot of importance in keeping a core district in place and trying to do what you can to make it thrive. Back in the 1980s, we spent a couple $1 million putting in a brand new street. We offered businesses financial incentives to improve the outsides of their businesses, and there were a number of improvements. In fact, you'd be shocked to know what this place looked like before we made those improvements today. It looks much better than it used to look. Maybe it's time for the city to look at the possibility of getting back involved and offering some of these incentives. My opponent's not here this evening. However, he made a comment in the Shawnee Mission Post that he felt that the downtown area was just a service district and that we didn't really need to use tax money to do anything to improve it, that there wasn't a need for the citizens or the residents on improving the infrastructure down in here. And I disagree considerably, because this is a part of our city. This is where it all began. Not to say that everybody's going to come here first, but it's important for us to keep this place up. And we've done a pretty good job given the fact that we do have a floodplain. More can be done. Pushing the Corps of Engineers is almost as hard as pushing the railroad. We can lobby all day, but it doesn't seem to help, and we have done some of that. We're going to continue to push them, but it's been tough. But we're willing, as a council, I certainly as a mayor, be willing to keep that fight going. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We'll now hear the remarks of Mr. Scott Beal, please.
Obviously, a lot of things covered here. The floodplain is going to keep any major development from happening. We know that. What we do here is, again, back to those questions. What we do here can draw people in. It can get people to come downtown, tying it again with farmers market. Some of the preliminary drawings that we've seen, things proposed, things that we can do on this site, do a neat job of tying those two together, bringing Turkey Creek Festival back down here, bringing them here. We need to invest in this area, and I believe that too. Now, incentives, I mean, those are all things that you got to discuss and look at, and how much, what is, and so forth. But I think the businesses down here, keeping up their property is just as important as us keeping up our properties, and I think that draws people into this area. So.
Very good. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Miles, finally, the question is to you.
It's kind of hard being the first and now the last. But I agree with everybody. It really depends on what we decide to do with this building. To bring the people into this area. When this building leaves, a lot of the traffic will leave with it. So it's the forums of the people getting together and deciding what we're going to do with this, to decide how much traffic will still be here. It's a shame to let this area fall down, but there's just so much money that has to be put into this building. Is it worth it? That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miles. Question number 3 is to you, ma'am, as we continue to talk about community amenities. There's been talk of the Antioch Library moving into the new community center. Are you in favor of supporting this initiative? If so, why or why not?
Well, I'm definitely in favor of supporting the library being part of the community center. I think that the new community center is all focused on providing services and a gathering place for residents, and what better way? I mean, I've gone to meetings, I've gone to discussions, and I wandered around the library, the Antioch Library. So to have that in the community center, I think that's just going to be a huge draw. I'm very excited that our staff and the library board and that the library staff are starting those discussions.
Thank you very much, ma'am. In our contested races in Ward 4, we will hear from Mr. Neal first and Ms. Moore second. So, Mr. Neal, the question is to you.
Well, I think this particular idea is in a very early stage of discussion, so it's unclear whether or not it's practical. I would favor, obviously, if we can get an updated Antioch Library and have it in close proximity to the community center, I think that would be a good thing. But I'm not sure, I think they have slightly different functions, so I don't know if they have to be physically in the same facility, and I don't really know that that's even being considered. But obviously, I think having an updated library in the same area would be advantageous. So we don't know much yet, so, and it's not entirely up to the city of Merriam. The Johnson County Library is going to have to, it's really their facility and their money, so we'll just have to see what happens. I feel like I would be good at evaluating whatever the proposals are put forward and contributing some useful thoughts.
Thank you very much, sir. Just more.
I am in favor of the initiative. It's what we all know, it's at the very infant stages. We're trying to just start the conversation to see what the library's needs are and what we have that can accommodate those. So we don't even have needs established yet, but the first step has to be an openness for collaboration, a willingness to recognize that a community center can be multi-generational, multifunctional, and it's an exciting concept. You know, will it go all the way through fruition? Will we end up sharing the same doors? Will we end up sharing the same parking lot? You know, still to be determined, but so far so good in terms of timing.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Mayor Sisson.
You know, I was kind of surprised this was a question because it really is preliminary. I would imagine, I'm just guessing, the majority of the people in this audience have never heard that this was even a possibility until tonight's meeting. Now, that being said, let me tell you, I'm very supportive of this merger. We have a history of working with other entities to try to save money by sharing costs. Our fire department is now run by the Overland Park Fire Department. We've saved many thousands of dollars in that process. You know, the Antioch Library, I've been in it recently, it's dated. It's too large for the facility, for the site that it's on. They don't have adequate parking. It's almost falling down as bad as this one. On the inside, it has some pretty significant infrastructure problems. But they're scheduled to replace it in 8 years. 8 years. Okay, this was not my idea. I wish it was. I'd love to take credit for it. Our city administrator, as the first person, I think, brought it forward, and his vision on this is just amazing. But we weren't even on the library's radar. We went to them and said, hey, we have the opportunity where you can build a library, a 15,000 square foot library potentially, on a site where we'll own the parking lot, we'll own the land. You just build the building. Maybe it'll be adjoined to our building, maybe it won't. We don't know, but look what you could save. And plus, they could sell that site. Can you imagine the commercial use for that site at 63rd and Antioch? And the benefits that would be to the area, with Kmart being built right across the street? These are the reasons why I'm excited about it. But believe me, we've got a lot of talking to do before we can go any further. And we're in that stage, and I kind of apologize that you heard about it maybe first time here, so. But it is still, it's all new.
Thank you very much, Mayor Sisson.
Yeah.
In a contested race, Mr. Miles will go first. Mr. Diebel. Mr. Miles, questions to you.
You know, I use the Antioch Library twice a week, and the parking lot is so small that the people who actually use the library is requested to go over to the Taco Bell and park. And it is outdated. It would be nice to have it together in the community center. By my understanding, there's going to be a large parking lot. And, you know, so I'm in favor for it. And to the mayor, a couple of times, twice a week that I'm at the library, that's what they're talking about. So, you know, so it's a good thing, I believe. We do need to figure out all the details on it and go forward with it. But, you know, I think it's a good thing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miles. Thank you, Mr. Diebel.
Yes, sir. I'm definitely in favor of it. One of the things that I really love about the preliminary plans of our community center is the entrance is a commons. You don't have to be a member. Now we could add another building that is now a membership building. Now we've got more people entering this area. We, you know, again, non-Merriam residents come to use that library. Look at this cool facility, maybe I'll be a member. Bingo, okay? So again, that combination is a good thing for the people that live here. Personally, I want a coffee shop in front of that, because I'm gonna go drink coffee on cold winter days. When I'm home at winter break from teaching and be able to visit with my neighbors. And I haven't read a book in a while, but maybe I'll wander over to the library and be able to, because I don't see myself swimming much anymore. But no, I think it'd be a good thing for our community and bring people in as well.
Thank you very much, sir. Ms. Seeker, finally to you. As an educator, I would think you'd have an opinion on what
Yes,
this is too.
absolutely. No, I hate to ask, would you read the question again, actually?
Why, most certainly. There's been talk of Antioch Library moving into the new community center. Are you in favor of supporting this initiative?
Okay, because I was a little taken when you read that question because it said moving into the new community center. And my understanding of, as you said, the empathy of the plans is that we're going in conjunction, right, not moving into. So, and that's my understanding from what everyone said, that we're moving like with funding and so forth in conjunction with not moving into. But yes, I was going to say, you know, as a former English teacher, I am thrilled with the idea that we would be in conjunction with the new community center.
I just got a red mark on my paper, so.
No, but, and to sort of put a little different spin, you know, as a last person, as you were saying, sometimes you feel like everything's been said, but I'll put a little different spin on it. I attended a lot of activities at the Matt Ross Community Center, and what I've noticed is when people are waiting for other people at the Matt Ross Community Center or so forth, you know, they're just sitting around. What I'm thinking is, what a great thing if people are waiting for other people at our community center or so forth, they're going to wander over to the library. And as a former English teacher, that makes me very excited to think that they're going over to the library and perhaps doing research or reading a book or in some way enhancing their education. That, to me, just seems like a wonderful, wonderful thing. So, that's good.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We'll now start with the next question. We will begin in Ward 4 with Ms. Moore speaking first, Mr. Neal speaking second, and in Ward 1, we'll have Mr. Diebold answering first with Mr. Miles following him. The question is this, and Mayor Sissom had alluded to this just a few moments ago. After consolidating services with Overland Park Fire Department 2 years ago, do you feel that this has been a good strategic move for the city of Merriam? Why or why not?
Yes, it's been a great strategic move. Our firefighters now have got more employment mobility options. Before, it was such a small staff that if they wanted to proceed through the ranks, you know, they were more limited, they left. Our service to our residents remains excellent. We also provide a needed service for Northern Overland Park when they, we serve them too, so our neighbors in Overland Park now have, Northern Overland Park, now have excellent service. It's been money savings. It's been a win-win completely. It's innovative. We own the equipment. We're getting ready to buy some more. The building is still there, so the response time is just as excellent when my neighbors have an emergency or when I've had one too. It's outstanding.
Very good. Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr. Neal, question to you.
Well, much as I hate to do this, I'm going to say I actually agree with pretty much everything you said. It's going to be a fairly short answer.
No more water for you.
Yeah. As a user of the old burn permits, the transition has not created any difficulty for us in continuing to burn the limbs from our 18 tree trees that we have to deal with from time to time. So, yeah, I pretty much, everything she said, I agree with.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Neal. Mayor Sissom, question to you, sir.
Well, this one I was very involved with as mayor. One of my best friends is the retired fire chief that preceded Mr. Payton back there. He and I had a long discussion before he retired. Our concerns were the fact that our staff, the people that we saw moving up through the ranks, were moving on, and we were running a little thin. Not including former Chief Pate. He was almost a standalone at the end there. But we saw that the department was small and was becoming more difficult to continue to find the proper resources to actually fund their needs because they were growing. And it made sense for us to look out for other options. So as we were thinking about the possibility of approaching Overland Park with this idea, as it turns out, they were actually thinking about reaching out to us with the same idea. And at the same time, even though we didn't know it. And when we met, it became obvious that this was the right thing to do. And we did it. It was almost a seamless operation, a transfer. All of our firefighters got more money. They got more opportunities. We got just a little bit higher level of fire service because of their resources. And it's been a great marriage between the two cities, and one I hope to see last for many years to come.
Very good, thank you very much, sir. Mr. Diebel, question to you, sir.
Obviously, this took place before I was on council, and hearing other people, in particular the mayor, how can it be a bad thing? Obviously, the residents of Merriam are getting serviced by a quality fire service, rescue. It benefited them, helped them with their northern territories, just like was mentioned before. So that's a no-brainer. That was a good thing that the city did.
Very good. Mr. Miles?
And I agree too. I really don't know much about it, to tell the truth. We need our firefighters, I know that. During one of the block parties, they came down and talked to the kids and showed them the trucks and stuff. It's a great opportunity for both sides, you know. But like I say, I haven't been on the city council, so I'm not aware of all that. But like the mayor said, it's a good thing. So I agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miles. Question to you, Ms. Newberg.
Well, it's pretty well been stated, all of the advantages of this merger. I would just say, as the mayor said, actually before this question was even stated, what a great and creative use of the merger of these two entities reaching out and sharing resources and seeing the advantages of two areas working together and using their resources to benefit both. And yes, obviously this is a really good thing that both of them saw those advantages and decided to work together and enhance both areas for each other. So yes, I'd say it was a very good decision for both.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
And because I have such longevity, I also served on a committee where we were looking at working with Consolidated Fire Number 2. So we tried to do this earlier because we were recognizing that we were going to hit a real break. We were keeping the young firefighters and the elderly ones. Oh, there it is. I was looking through Mr. Pate, just so you know. So, and the ones with longevity they just were topped out. They couldn't go anywhere. So we had looked at it before, and the initial concern was, are they going to still give us the personal kind of service that we've been used to when we had our own homegrown folks? And Ms. Hupp and I often work on Arbor Day, and we go to both of the grade schools, and the fire department always comes and waters the new tree that Public Works has planted. And guess what? Overland Park still does that for us.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So the question is this. In the last 15 years, the city of Merriam has experienced a tremendous amount of growth, which has enhanced their commercial tax base and taken relief off the residents in order to fund vital city functions. In your opinion, what is the biggest challenge facing Merriam today that, if not addressed over the next 4 years?
One of the things that I love about the city of Merriam is our neighborhoods. And particularly in our northern zone. You know, it's got that small town feel. It's got that, and I bother people. I sit on my porch and wave, everybody drives by and annoy the heck out of them. I know to do that. So, and I love that because they wave back. And that's that small town feel. In those neighborhoods, I'd like to see us, and I don't know if it's a challenge, but challenge may not be the right word.
Sure.
Where I want to see us go with that is that connectivity. We put street lights in, make them safer. I've been doing a lot of walking this summer, and a lot of sidewalks need help, a lot of help. Streets are good, but sidewalks, and you know, I think that's going to help with the connectivity, with the safety of our neighborhoods. I think we need to look at going there into our neighborhoods. We've talked about incentives for down here. We do have a grant program for incentive for homeowners. I would like to see us do other things, other incentives to help with that connectivity, the neighborhoods, and bringing that together. That is a very important part of what this city's all about.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Newkirk, the question is to you.
Would you say it again? Because in my head, I was thinking floodplain, and so I need
No,
to
no,
hear
no.
the question again, please. Well, okay, but in my head, that's where I was thinking.
Okay, so I'm going to try to paraphrase this because in the last 15 years, Merriam's done a great job with their growth. They've increased their commercial tax base. They've taken financial pressure off the residents with regards to vital civic functions. In your mind, what is the biggest challenge outside of the creek that you feel needs to be addressed, and if not addressed now, will create a greater challenge?
You know, I think that in Merriam, we have sort of, it's an older city, and so we have a lot of aging housing, a lot of older housing, and within those older houses, we also have aging residents. But also, we have sort of a newer area as well, some newer housing, younger residents, and so we sort of have a split of residents within Merriam. Older housing, older residents, but then some newer housing and newer residents. And so the city sort of has a challenge, I think, in meeting the needs of the older housing and the older residents and the newer housing and the newer residents. And so I think it's tough, and it's going to be difficult, especially going forward, for the city to find ways to meet the needs of all of its residents because they have such diverse needs. And I think especially the older housing and the older residents trying to keep up with that as it goes on, and we have to make repairs and deal with codes. And I think also with the older residents, as they move into some care facilities, then those houses sometimes go to rentals, and then that creates kind of a different aspect. And sort of, you were talking about a sense of community. When they go to rentals, they have to kind of work on creating that sense of community as well.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Ms. Evans-Hans, the question is to you.
I agree with Mr. Diebold. I'm not sure it's a challenge, but I think what we're going to have to keep as top of mind always is balance. We need to balance our new things with taking care of our infrastructure. We need to balance, if we're going to look at tax incentives, with what is really good for the residents. So I think balance is really going to be the big word for me for the next 4 years. Thanks.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr. Neal, the question is now to you, sir.
Could you possibly repeat that one more time?
I'm going to walk it over.
I actually heard it, I think, as more of a, you know, economic development, finance kind of question, tax-based question, and I'm not, could you read it?
No, I just basically, the gist of the question, and I'll kind of paraphrase it just to get to where we're at, is, and I'll use the word challenge/opportunity. What do you believe is the greatest challenge/opportunity, if not addressed in the next 4 years, will create an even greater challenge for the city of Merriam moving forward?
But with respect to, you know,
Anything.
Okay,
It's
well,
not with
all right.
respect, or
So I'm
tied
gonna take
into
this-
anything.
I'll take this in a little bit different direction because I sort of heard it as a question regarding the challenges that we may face. And the preamble talked about, you know, the progress we've made in terms of financial stability and city government. I Obviously, we're landlocked. We are constrained as far as new developments. We've developed much of what we have using tax increment financing. I think we need to be discerning in the future about how we employ tax increment financing. But I think a bigger problem that may be on the horizon, and somebody going a different direction here, things in Merriam are good. Things in Topeka may not be so good. In terms of Topeka has been steadily encroaching on local governance. The legislature has passed laws limiting the city in terms of what it can do with property taxes. And there's also talk of possibly changing the way sales tax is collected and allocated. Particularly auto dealerships, maybe taxes collected may in fact at some point go back to the buyer's municipality jurisdiction. And if that happens, Merriam's in trouble. So I think we need to also focus on looking without as well, and make sure we're really on top of what's going on in the legislature, and as a council be very active and vocal in looking after our needs there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manning. Ms. Moore, questions to you.
Well, I mean, I really think, we've never been better. I think we need to keep the positive momentum. I don't know that I can see anything that if it doesn't happen in the next 4 years, we're going to get derailed. But having said that, I think we need to focus on smart redevelopment. There is really no development anymore in Merriam. There's just redevelopment. So we need to think about balance, like Chris said, on what it brings to the city. What sales tax revenue it brings to the city, what it brings to the residents, and we are not just to keep that balance, I guess, of resident needs and desires to money coming in, and we just need to be smart about that. I can't, we're on the right track, but there's going to be some redevelopment coming up with Kmart and potentially across the street, so we just need to pay attention to that.
Very good. And thank you all for your very creative responses, and Liz, for how you looked through the question and were able to respond to it. Mayor Sisson, didn't forget about you. I got a special question for you, sir. Unfortunately, your challenger is not here, so that is unfortunate. However, I'll still ask the question nonetheless. Why do you feel you're a more effective leader for the city of Merriam than your opposing candidate?
Well, I can go to my experience. I have had a leadership position with the park, or with the city for the last 8 years. I spent 13 years as police chief in a leadership position, not just as the chief of Merriam, but I was also the president of the Kansas Chiefs Association, Metro Chiefs Association, Johnson County Chiefs Association. So I have a lot of experience in leadership. I have a lot of experience in leadership of the city of Merriam. And I think if you look at the record, our city has done a lot of great things in those 8 years. So I have a lot of examples I can provide. I really can't speak to my opponent because I don't know anything about him. And that's its own problem. I'm running against someone who preaches transparency, yet all we know is he works for the federal government as a manager. That's not very transparent. So I can't really speak to whether my leadership abilities are better than his, because he's never really told anybody about who he is. So, but I can rest assured that my record here of leadership in Merriam is something that I would certainly stack against anything that he might have. And again, it's been a great run for me. I have a wonderful staff. Things happen in our city because of them. We're just there to prove it. But it's knowing when to prove it, when not to prove it. That's what leadership is all about. Everybody gets along real well, and I'd like to see it continue. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, let's thank the candidates for their time. Very difficult thing to dedicate a lot of your free time for volunteer service, and sometimes it goes without things. So we certainly appreciate those that have served and those that are committed to serving. So with that, that closes out our question and answers portion of the event tonight. What we will now do is move to our closing remarks, and we will start in Ward 2 with Ms. Patty Newkirk.
Since this is the first time I'm running for office, could you just give me a little hint of what would be entailed in our closing remarks?
I'll give you an example.
Thank you.
I'm Patty Newkirk, and I would appreciate your vote. I decided to run for office. How was
What
that?
was the last part? They laughed and I didn't hear the last part.
You're running for office.
I'm running for, that's it? I'm running for
No,
office?
just whatever you, give the individuals a summarization of.
Would you
I could go first.
could
Ms.
you
Evans'
let her,
hand.
thank
We'll-
you.
Okay,
Thank you.
But let's remember, mine's a little bit different.
Okay, but that's okay, thank you.
I am very appreciative that I'm going to get to, I hope, serve for 4 more years. And I feel like right now, what I want to say is preaching to the choir. Vote. Everyone,
Yes,
vote.
yes.
And please go out, talk to your neighbors, talk to your kids, talk to your grandkids so they know that voting is important. It's just dismal, the turnout that we have, especially at local elections. So please, please, vote. Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Ms. Newkirk, would you like
Yes,
to go?
yes. And I'm Patty Newkirk, and thank you for having us again tonight. And I would appreciate your vote, and again, I would echo what you said. Your voice is so important, and do please vote, and I hope you will consider my answers tonight, and do know that I will be a thoughtful and hardworking candidate, and would appreciate your thoughts as you consider and go to the ballot this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kirk, and you did a great job. Ms. Moore?
Well, I have notes. So in closing, I understand my responsibilities as a city council representative for Merriam Ward 4. I understand that I represent Ward 4 residents. I listen, responsive, effective. I also understand that it's my responsibility to keep us moving forward. Continue our practice of fiscal responsibility, continue enhancing quality of life for our residents, continue to make sure that city departments have the tools that they need to work smart and be effective. And finally, and really probably most importantly, I understand that my responsibility isn't just to ensure that these things happen for the next 4 years for my term, but really my job is also to set the stage for the next generation. I understand that. I'm the best candidate. Let's keep the positive momentum going. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. Mr. Neal, your closing remarks, please.
Well, obviously, I didn't get the memo about the suits, and I also wasn't aware exactly whether I was going to have what the format was going to be, so I don't have anything prepared, but I will say, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to everybody. My background in engineering and construction and IT, I think bring a different perspective, a needed perspective on the council. I think the city is in pretty good shape, and I'm very proud to be a resident. I would like to see Merriam in the next 15 years do what's happened in the first 15 years. I think you're a wonderful councilwoman. I just think we need somebody with my background on the council, and we happen to live in the same ward, so so I'm running. And
So you're going to vote for me?
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The toughest question this committee will answer all day.
But anyway, I have, every one of these questions that we've had tonight is something that I've written about extensively on neilformerriam.com. Many of these things can't really be explained in a minute and a half, so I would encourage everybody to go take a look and please vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neal. We'll now hear the closing remarks from our incumbent mayor, Mr. Sisson.
I've lived in Merriam for many, many years. I raised my son, my only child, in Merriam. My wife and I have lived here and lived and love living in Merriam. We have great people in Merriam. It's a great location. I mailed out a card to about 4,000 voters. And in this card, I talked about the fact that we have not raised the mill levy in 8 years. As your mayor, I will not support any raise in the mill levy for the time that I'm remaining in office. Our fund reserves have increased since I've been mayor 42%. In other words, our funds have 42% higher amounts in them today than they had 8 years ago. While in office, the net assets, the value of the city's increased over 65%. Outstanding bond debt has reduced 86%. That's how much money we owe. It's reduced 86% in the last 8 years. The fund balance, our reserves, have increased 241%. 241% in 8 years. Sales tax revenues are up 55%. 12% decrease in the number of employees, primarily because of our Overland Park merger. This is why I want to run for mayor. I think we've had a great last 8 years. I want it to keep going because we can do so much more. And there's still plenty of work to do, and I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you very much, Mayor Sisson. Mr. Debold.
First of all, thank you for doing this. Again, great opportunity. And again, thanks for attending, a chance to hear us. I feel like that I need to address something very quickly that Mr. Miles mentioned in his introduction. When I took seat, was my very first meeting, was the beginning of the controversy with the trash can. I stepped right into the fire, fell into the fire. Listened, I did listen. Because all I did the next 2 weeks was come back with designs to help my neighbors screen their trash cans. One specifically for a neighbor for her side design. As far as with Mr. Frisbee's help going to the downtown partnership, trying to get money to help pay for that. And I volunteered to build them all. So to say I don't care about my constituents is wrong. Right? And again, I don't want this to be negative, and I don't want any controversial or confrontational as well. But I think that needs to be stated is that, and as far as voting for that meeting, the ordinance was changed, verbiage. I voted no because I wanted time to think about it. I did not have time to research what the change would make. So therefore, I wanted another 2 weeks to look at it. That's why I voted no. So again, I feel like I need to state that. So again, thanks for coming, I guess. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Debold. And Mr. Miles, we'll close with you, sir.
And that's really great, okay, except, as Mr. Debold said, he's lived in this community for a long time. And everybody in the community was aware of the trash can situation. He had plenty of time in the 2 weeks before the vote to do research. He had plenty of time to make a decision of what he wanted done. The problem of it is when he stated, I don't know everything about the trash can situation, so I'm going to vote no. He could have said, I don't know everything about it, so I'm going to abstain myself. If you don't know what you're talking about, say you don't know what you're talking about, just like I did. Don't let your vote count against the residents when you have 25 residents out in the audience. 80 signed signatures stating that they didn't want to have to screen those trash cans. So, yeah, you needed more time, but all of us that was there was aware of the trash can situation. I appreciate you guys letting me come here and speak my mind. And hopefully, you guys will vote with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that now brings us to the conclusion of this event. Let us please give all the candidates a round of applause.